All right. Hello, hello, out to the world of humans out there. I am so excited for this live with Regan. We will just get her on here and begin. Oh, hey, Shosh. Yeah, good to see you. And here comes Regan.
Yay! Hi, good to see you as well.
All right. How fun. We're doing this.
Yay, so exciting. Long time coming.
It is a long time coming. I'm so grateful to have you here, Reagan, and welcome to everybody here. We're going to be talking about this is part of my series that I've been interviewing amazing humans, a series that I'm calling Energy Talks. So we will be talking about energy and also listening to the wisdom of the energy within the body, specifically today with a special guest, Regan. And yeah, it's a long time coming because, we've been dancing in community. How many years, Regan?
Man, since I was 18, I think, honestly. So it's
I
it's
know
been
I've
close
been in
to
our dance
20
community like
years.
11 years. So I don't know at what point you came in, but a long time, like a decent
Long
chunk
time.
of years for being somewhat young people. We've known
Mm,
each other for a long time and we've danced in so many shared spaces together. And
yeah.
look at us evolving on our paths. And here we are now, like crossing paths at festivals out in the world where we're both teaching different dance workshops and you're dancing on
Mm.
stage to these big name DJs and I'm dancing on the, cheering you on. And so
Oh,
really special. And I know for both of us that the practices of dance have evolved into such significant parts of our lives and have brought us each so much healing and so much spiritual wisdom and growth and are just like really powerful tools for us in our lives and that we care about sharing this out in the world. So that's what we're here to do. um
yeah.
yeah. So just to really get set some context, and we can try to keep this part brief. I would love to actually both of us just share briefly kind of where we're coming from, so that it kind of grounds us in what our practices are and what our learning has come from. So if you want to start,
Mm.
Regan, and just share kind of like what was the trajectory of inspiration that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's been a strange serendipitous path for me getting into movement and dance. I think a part of me has always known that I was meant to be dancing, but I actually grew
Mm,
up as a competitive power lifter and competitive CrossFit athlete. I started when I was about 12 doing that, and did that all until, yeah, did that up until I graduated and moved to Seattle and realized that you didn't have to be trained from the time you were 5 to be a dancer in order to become a dancer. And
mm,
once I had that realization, I sort of just poured my entire being into learning how to dance, and mostly through teaching myself movement and just exploring in my living room and feeling the emotions in my body and turning on music and just moving in whatever way felt good. And that kind of bled into performing arts and becoming a professional performing artist for many years, maybe like 5 or 6 years, until the pandemic hit. And at that point, transitioned
mm,
into helping other people access their dance and their movement. And that quickly expanded into a much deeper connection to the
mm,
embodiment aspect and the healing aspect of movement and dance. And that's where the last like
mm,
3 years or so I've been focusing so much of my time and attention, and
mm.
researching so much into being trauma informed and trauma aware. And I'm interested in some of the more yeah, like internal aspects and ancestral wisdom as well of dance and movement beyond performance art and including performance art.
Mm, mm. Mm, so rich and it's kind of making things click for me a little bit because I recall, knowing you and admiring your dance and your performance kind of from afar, but not necessarily realizing how much crossover we have in our passion about the deep healing possibilities and spiritual aspects. And then suddenly I felt like I turned around and you were teaching workshops that sounded really similar to what I was doing. And I was like, whoa, all right, like let's talk more. Okay. Because
Yeah.
like, there's so within the realm of dance, there's so many avenues and arenas one can be on, and they're all beautiful and they can all be healing and amazing. So but yeah, that makes sense now hearing that it's like, oh, you really had a shift towards some powerful um yeah, the healing and intuitive aspects, which I'm eager to learn from you and about your experiences. um yeah, well, I'll share briefly, and I love hearing that you're a power lifter. Is that the right word? And like come from such
Yeah.
a like badass background. And you might be so, I don't know if you know this about me, but before I started dancing, ecstatic dance specifically, I had a 15 years of Aikido martial arts background. And
Oh,
so
wow.
my actual like past of movement practices all in martial arts. And
Mhm.
and unlike you, I haven't put a lot of energy into like really learning technique of dance and like skill of dance. I really just been like in a room dancing for myself. And
Mhm.
so, it's so beautiful. We're coming from different experiences and also, yeah, just have so much also in common in our passion for this work. So yeah, I'll just say, so I had 15 years of martial arts and then started doing ecstatic dance. And as part of my own healing journey, started learning energy work and combining that with my dance practice, which evolved into really expansive spiritual experiences of feeling energy moving through the body and intentionally channeling energy and directing it towards my healing, specifically a lot of gut health healing and moving energy and purging things out of my gut energetically through the energy work and the dance. So yeah, all of that just inspired me to start having these kind of conversations and like looking into, what kinds of spiritual experiences are people having with dance, and that ultimately has led me to be teaching this practice that I call energy dance and facilitating dance ceremonies. So here we are, both guiding and supporting people in this powerful embodiment practice. And why don't we start off just, you were interested in talking about that relationship of communication with the body and listening to the body and expressing through that. And in some ways, some people listening might feel like that's um, maybe kind of obvious, but it can be so subtle and so unique and can take a lot of practice. So I know I would love to hear about that, and what you could share with us, maybe some tips and inspiration about your experience with that.
Hmm. Thank you. Yeah. First, I had no idea that you had a background in martial arts. I love that. It's so beautiful and epic and such a fascinating realm of embodiment to me. Yeah, I feel like I could go down a whole rabbit hole asking you questions about that, but
This whole
dance.
conversation is going to be lots of rabbit holes we all want to go down.
Yeah,
So just pick the ones you want. I'll pick the ones I want. Go for it.
perfect. Yeah. As far as listening to the body and communication with the body or things like that, it's something that feels like an ever expanding concept for me. Like every time I think I understand, oh, here's how my body talks to me, here's how I can listen to my body, I find another avenue and another deepening into that. And um, first and foremost for me has been tuning into the parts of my body that are connected to my nervous system and the impact of the state of my nervous system on those different responses. And that is most of the body is responding to the nervous system at any given point. But some of the major ones that I feel most connected to are like, where is my breath in this moment? Where is the tension in my body? How is my heart rate? How is my blood pressure?
Mm,
Am I feeling like digestion is moving, or am I feeling kind of stuck in that area? How is my vision? Like, am I kind of narrow tunnel vision, or kind of like dissociated foggy vision? And
mm,
all of these different pieces, and starting to get an understanding of where my body is in those elements, when I'm regulated and secure and feel safe in my body, versus if I have some nervous system dysregulation going on. And not always in a bad way either. Like, if I'm activated, what does the activation feel like in those different arenas? And if I'm going into rest and digest and slow down mode, what do those feel like? And so that's felt like the biggest form of communication that's been supportive in my healing journey so far, is that level of awareness. But
mm,
then it kind of ripples out as well into awareness of where my body is in time and space as well. And that's the part that starts to bridge into movement for me, is this like proprioceptive kinesthetic awareness. Like, where are my joints and muscles, and how is my body like physically moving through time and space, and what are the stories that I have around those body languages and the emotions that are tied to
mm,
those body languages and the cues of those, that then start to tell a really nuanced story of um, the conditioning that I've got up until this point, of like hunched shoulders and like contracted clenching is,
yeah.
angry or insecurity or sad, and like the expansiveness
Mm,
is this, and being able to tune into those different pieces as well.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
those
going
two
to
are
ask
like
if you want
standing
to
out.
give some examples, like you
Hmm.
just were, if you want to maybe give another example or two, because I think this is, and this is much less the, where I have done a lot of exploration. So it's really great to hear this. And I think probably everybody listening, I would
Hmm.
make a guess that everybody hearing this now or later, um, you know, wants to learn about how to work with our nervous system, because it's just such a hot
Hmm.
topic in this day and age in this society where, I listen to a lot of talks about trauma and embodiment, and, how do we work with our nervous systems. And so, like, I hear just so many people talk about how our brains have not evolved to be living in the society in the way that we live now, because, we're experiencing this stress response in the body from things that aren't actually life threatening, like your
Hmm.
workplace or your, not to say some people's workplaces can be life threatening, but um, the sort of like you're facing a tiger stress is like the same stress we feel when we're like writing emails, to our boss or whatever. And we
Yeah.
need tools. It's like these are things in our society that we really need tools for. And like you said, bringing your awareness to the body and those responses, and then learning what that means, and then how I assume then there's ways you can choose to move the body or adjust your posture and
Hmm.
alignment in order to shift out of maybe a stress response into the rest and digest parasympathetic. Do you want to give a few more examples, maybe tips that people listening might note could use, like if they're stressed or anxious?
Hmm. Yeah, beautiful. It is such an important topic, and the example of a stressful workplace is a really great one, because it's like even a step beyond that feeling of there being a threat in the workplace. Like, let's say our boss is yelling at us and our body is perceiving that as life threatening.
Mm-hmm.
We then, on top of that, also can't complete the cycle of activation. We can't fight or flee our boss. Like, we can't respond with that
Yeah,
actual
get it out
what.
and then, like,
Yeah. Yeah. The body is telling us, the nervous system is telling our body to prepare to fight and run away from this threat. And what we have to do is
Mhm.
use our brain to tell our body, like, no, I actually just have to sit and stay in this and not respond, which is so often the freeze response then coming and creating a dissociation. And
Mhm.
so I think for from my viewpoint of beginning to work with the nervous system from a body-based practice, because there's so much of that freeze that happens in our society, that like dissociating from the intensity of the fight and flight response that's kind of just going ad infinitum because of our stressful environments. Oftentimes, if we just step out of the freeze into that fight or flight, it's a really overwhelming experience. It's almost like too much to hold. And so, when I'm working with people, one of the first things I like to do is use movement and dance as a way of creating an understanding of the felt sense of safety in the body
Mhm.
and creating
Mhm.
access points of what it feels like to be in joy in our body and what it feels like to be in pleasure in our body, so that we have the ability to titrate into that experience, so that we're not just
Mhm.
diving straight
Mhm.
into this really overwhelming fight or flight response. We can go back and forth between, holy shit, this feels like a lot. Oh my God, it's so intense. And wow, my body is this safe haven of joy and pleasure that I can exist
Mhm.
within as well. So that feels really important to me in terms of movement as it relates to the
Mhm.
nervous system, and a good entry point into exploring
Mm.
it. It's like just find movement that feels good so you have
Mhm.
access to that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Again, so many touch points and threads that I want to play with you. Yeah, just going off of what you were saying, the importance of that titration and being um, having some choice around how deep do I want to work with this intense emotion or this, issue or challenge in my life or in my health, and how much do I need to actually recover and find strength and resiliency in
Mm,
the groundedness, the expansiveness, the love, the peace, the safety, the I'm okay, and that piece. And um yeah, it's interesting when I'm dancing. It's really my sacred haven for healing. Like that, it is my practice. And some people listening, and this is where we're also unique, even though we're all humans with a lot of similar functioning systems. We're also really unique. And I know I personally have a hard time expressing and tapping into some of those deeper emotions or heavy things, and kind of do a lot of like shutting down, which is what you were
mm,
talking about as well. But I know sometimes when I'm on the dance floor and a song comes on that feels like, ooh, this song has some like some fight in it, like you're saying, we have such pent up needs to like fight or run or scream or
mm,
whatever it might be. And I often find that the dance floor is where I can access that, and probably because I am creating that space of conscious connection with myself and with my body, and I'm not letting myself be in my daily world of, oh, I need to do that, oh, I need to, just getting
mhm,
focusing on my to-do list, right? I bet some people listening are resonating with that, right? It's like, oh, when we finally take a moment to not think about the rest of our life, then the flood of other emotions and experiences and feelings actually get a space to be heard, which kind of comes back around
mm,
to how you really, your focus, on really listening to the body and that expression. I know some workshops that I saw you were doing about, listening to the intuitive movement of the body, right? Like how do we
mhm,
find that intuitive, authentic movement in the body? Um, yeah, so I think again, back to the titration piece. Yeah, well, I was saying for me, if a song comes out that feels like it can help me really feel my rage, I will try as hard as I can to feel as much of the rage that I can, or the grief, or the whatever it is, because in some ways, and I think there's a lot of talk about this practice in trauma healing as well, um, that that need for it to be acknowledged and to be felt and to be really seen and heard and expressed. And in the dance ceremony I was facilitating the other day, I was kind of role modeling this and found myself making these faces and like clenching my fists while I was dancing. And it's like, yeah, that helps me summon up that, this like warrior song came on. And I was like, oh, there's so much to be rageful about in the world. And I don't let myself really feel that, I've got things to do. And, so I like really lean into it and let it come out. But then because it is such an embodied experience and it's not a stress, I'm not fighting something right there in the room, the next song can come on and be a totally different experience. And I can titrate back to like, okay, at the end of that warrior song, I just like offered these, deep prayer of healing up to the world that then fills me with that, ecstatic bliss and, of love and expansion and that place where my body can feel good and can feel powerful, right? I know we both really center empowerment in our work, that and freedom, that embodied freedom and empowerment. So yeah, just like how expansive the dance floor is and the body is. I'm always telling people there's infinite things you can do. There's infinite awesomeness of things you can do with dance and embodiment. Every moment is unique. So yeah. Is there anything I said that perks your inspiration to jump into or?
Oh my gosh, all of it. Yeah, so much of it.
Go for it.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I'm loving this piece of the like that quality of movement, find yourself making the like fists in the face of rage. And that to me is like this really interesting piece of the body speaking without the story of the mind, where it's like I don't have to remember what caused the emotion or what
You
my
don't have to
story
know.
was.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the body just has these energies within it that come through in what I like to call movement qualities, whether that quality is like soft and like fluid and kind of flowy, and maybe that relates to a specific emotion, or it is that kind of clenched, like forceful, kind of aggressive movement. Whatever it is, if I'm able to create spaciousness where my body is moving through time and space in a way that's not being informed by my brain, but rather like the intuitive, like spontaneous movement coming up, more often than not, those energies that are still in my body are what inform my movement that my brain can then observe and process later, however I need to process. But um, for what it feels like for me is that these fight or flight responses, these like triggers that have happened in my life that never came to completion. They never had an opportunity to be resolved in the moment for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't appropriate at the time. Maybe I went into a fear response and it got tampered down, or
Kind of
it was
shut
just too
down. Yeah.
uncomfortable. Yeah, it's an opportunity for that very real energy, like these hormones that get released into the body and just stay there until they're utilized, to be utilized and to be given voice through that movement and the activation of my body in a very specific way. And one thing that I've kind of stumbled upon recently is like how you were saying at the end of a song when it shifts to another one, this availability of just transitioning out of it and being able to offer it up in praise and prayer. I've found recently, I was kind of stuck in this loop where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just angry in my movement. There's like so much rage and anger. And to some degree, I think that was really helpful. I think it was really healthy and needed for me to be able to express the rage. And maybe there was actually that much rage in my body, but there was sort of this clicking point for me recently where it's like, oh, this energy of rage in my body has the same essence. It's the same movement qualities as what I think of empowerment and like power.
Mm,
And then once I was able to take that experience that I once was labeling rage and be like, no, this is just me like in my power warrior mode. It felt
mm,
like this complete like dissolution of the story of like I've got so much rage in my body. It was like I've got so much energy in my body that I'm now
mm,
utilizing as power and like the ability to fight and stand in my warrior mode. And that for me
mhm,
was a huge like shift into a healing layer, which I don't think would have happened if I hadn't had the ability to see myself in rage first. So rather than, it
mm,
wasn't like dissociating from rage or pretending like I don't have it. It was like, oh no, it's been expressed enough that now it's just power. Now it's just like pure warrior mode, which was a fun
mm,
shifting point for me.
mm. And that fills me with excitement. I have a pretty extensive background and passion for grassroots organizing and revolutionary
Mm,
changing of the world. And prior to even doing any of this guided dance ceremonies and things that I'm doing, I was in the streets a lot, and I was wanting to bring this dance to the streets and wanting us to
mm,
be able to dance it together, and the collective energy, and as a way of channeling that rage that you're referring to into a way of creativity and like calling out, whether it's in a feeling of prayer or in a feeling of you know yelling to people, oppressive people in dominating roles. um
mm,
it's it is power, that whether we call it rage or we call it energy or we call
mm,
it that inner fire, it is this collective power. And that really touches back to what drives so much of my work specifically, is that I feel, I see dance and I see singing and a lot of these practices that have been really suppressed through all these generations, and epically atrocious histories of colonization. um, those practices are really innate in us, and it's part of,
mm,
I find, I mean, as we're talking about, we know how much healing can happen there, and we also how much, for me, how much prayer, how much energy work happens when we're dancing. And we're kind of talking about that already, maybe not by the same name, but all those things you're describing in the way you're listening. And there's a lot of wisdom in there of how to listen with the body, how to move the body, and also a lot of energy work. When I
mm,
was talking about the rage and the face and and then I may be stomping my feet and I'm like throwing some energy up, to the sky, or um, holding a vision for a different world that I want to see. And I'm a prison abolitionist, and so I'm often visualizing like all the jails and prisons and detention centers around the world, and just like visualizing them crumbling, and visualizing people like rising up free and expansive in love. Like, to me this is real. And it's not to say that those prayerful dances worked, like we're still living in this society,
mm,
but I believe that they are significant drops in the bucket. And that's what makes me so excited to share these practices, because I see both on an individual level how transformative it is. People, we are sharing the same ecstatic dance community where we've been dancing for many, many, many years. I'm sure you also have seen so many people come through that space brand new and just watch their life completely transform. Like, people get to see
yeah.
what it's like to be authentic, to be open, to be expressed in the
Mm,
body. So anyone who has never experienced ecstatic dance or another kind of conscious dance space where it's really about just free form movement and expression without judgment, without trying to like, meet other people and socialize. I mean, that can be there too, but um yeah, the power of transformation is just so deep in there on
mm,
a personal level, but then we expand that to the collective level, and we bring our, I don't know if you've gone down rabbit holes of exploring the significance of mass meditations, or like, you know, sort of
Mm.
large scale organized events where people are, I mean, from meditation to like mass orgasming at the same time. Like
Yeah,
people
that's
do all
actually what
kinds
came
of,
to my mind when you
yeah,
said that. That's that one.
yeah, I've heard of those too. You know, any kind of practice where there's a large group of people doing some kind of intentional,
Mm,
energetic practice with with that focus of where we're putting the energy, huge measurable changes are seen, you know. So
mhm.
anyway, to me, that's really
Yeah.
exciting about what's possible at a concert. You know, what's possible when, you know, everyone's cheering, when people are seeing you dance and they're like feeling your energy up there dancing, that, you know, that love, that excitement, that, you know, that's a powerful ripple of energy that's happening.
Mm,
So whether we're in the streets or
mm.
at a show or at ecstatic dance, or, you know, doing our a daily regular practice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I could watch myself get really excited and like,
Yeah.
whoo, okay. Yes.
No, I love it. It is, I mean, it's so true. There is so much of the like the metaphysical prayer space for me within dance and movement that I feel deeply connected to. It almost always is a spiritual experience for me to be in movement. Um, and I also really love working with affirmations in movement and
Mm.
dancing with a
Ooh,
specific
cool.
visualization. And for me, it kind of manifests as the movement reflecting the embodiment of the specific manifestation that I'm holding. So if that's like, I am
Yes.
strong, or I am love, or, you know, like whatever that is, if I can dance that and, you know, show with my movement strength or love or compassion or openness or whatever that is, it's a moving embodied prayer where it's not just my brain thinking about this thing, it's my body actually getting
Mm.
to experience what it feels like to be in that state. And that to me, like that, and, you know, when I see people coming into this ecstatic dance space, and I had the privilege of working the front desk at our ecstatic dance community for so long that I
You're
saw
you're
this.
still you're still saved in my phone as like front desk, and I was like laughing about
Yeah.
that.
It's so
Front
funny.
desk at Coach.
I think that's my claim to fame in Seattle forever and ever is, is
No,
that.
but go on.
But
I shouldn't have interrupted. Go ahead.
yeah.
Saying
Um, I think, you
like
know, I saw
receiving people.
so many times, yeah, people coming in this kind of contracted, fearful, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is so far outside of my comfort zone type of space. And then going in and embodying freedom and coming out expanded and like, wow, I have so much autonomy and ability to be in my body and to be free. And I think that to me
Mm,
is that like that ripple effect. Like if everyone had the opportunity to dance and embody the autonomy and freedom and like just humanity that lives within them, how much that would shift things. And that to me, I mean, I feel like I can't talk about these things without calling in the fact that this is such indigenous wisdom. Like this is so woven into every
mhm,
indigenous culture, this
mhm,
community dance practice of connecting with each other, with movement, with the embodiment of specific elements and ways of being. And then, you know, the global majority as well. Like people of the global majority, these cultures almost always have a dance that is cultural and tied to their lineage and is
mhm,
expressive and
mm,
connecting them to their humanity and each other and the emotions within them. I think of like crumping in the Black community is
mm,
is the manifestation of the rage and their reclamation of power in that. And it is that kind of
mm,
like ah, you know, energy to it. And
mm,
so just wanting to name these like beautiful examples that we have out in the world of this energy that I feel like I'm just now getting to tap into, and it's like new and amazing to me, and everyone else is like, yeah, this, yeah, welcome.
You're like, yeah, you're catching up, like,
Yeah.
and it's true. I mean, and I'm always talking about that, and also on the spiritual level. Um, oh gosh,
Mm,
again, so many pieces that I want to go on from where you're saying is, traditional cultures around the world use dance and song and rhythm and instruments to go
mm,
into trance states. It's a normal part of life. Like, all peoples before, all this, terrible colonization shit,
mm,
knew that we are spiritual beings, knew that we are divine beings, knew that there's, an energy and an expansiveness greater than ourselves, and knew that we can shake the body and we can tune into the energy and we can, commune and talk and we can receive healing energy. There's some specific dances that I've been learning about, not learning how to do them, but just learning of them that, exist. And yeah, the ancient cultural practice, and people know how to come together and literally heal the entire village through singing and dancing all night around a fire, and
mhm,
it's, yeah, in some ways it's kind of funny and pathetic, like, to see ourselves, like, I'm this white person, who grew up so stiff, so self-conscious,
mm,
so awkward and uncomfortable in my body, right? And again, like, just to zoom in on how toxic this Western, white supremacist culture is. It's like we're honed in
mm,
on how we look, on our appearances, like all this stuff that relates to, consumerism, and we know these things, that are just so far removed from what's really real, what actually matters, what's really real, what's healthy and holistic for our well-being. And that actually reminded me one thing you were saying that I was like, yes. When you're talking about embodying the freedom and embodying that feeling, like, I'm sure
mm,
you talk about this too, with your, learning about trauma, is that, the ways that we can rewire ourselves. I hear a lot of trauma specialists talk about, you know, right, we know people know at this point that the trauma really lives in the body. It lives in the flesh and the, like, cellular memory of our bodies,
mhm,
intergenerational past life, um, traumas. And through the embodiment, and like you said, adding the affirmations, I've never thought about it that way, but I don't think to myself, oh, I'm doing affirmations, but I am. And I appreciate that you said that,
yeah.
because it's like, what I tell people, like, I talk about using visualizations and intention. Again, same thing. When you're
Mhm,
holding that vision of your true self, of your free self, of holding that vision of who you are becoming, or the life that you're calling in, or, if you're working on healing a traumatic experience where you felt disempowered, but then you can be in this dance and you can, like, own yourself, your awesomeness. Oh, you can hold that different feeling of freedom, of power, of safety, or whatever, of love for yourself. Maybe it's like your own trauma that you did to yourself, of self-sabotage, right?
mm,
That I know I'm doing to myself on a very regular
same.
basis, of so much
Yeah.
deep, like, internal self-critique. So then on the
Mm,
dance floor, I can help recalibrate that, or, rebalance that, and hold, like you said, hold the feeling, hold the motion in the body. When I'm facilitating, I'll
mm,
tell people, like, get big and take up space and feel your inner warrior, feel your inner priestess or magician, or,
yeah.
I like the word sorceress for myself. I'm like, I'm expansive, I'm this, and it's so that we can then carry that, yeah, into our
Mm,
lives, and rewrite those neural pathways to be like, oh,
yeah.
I am a powerful divine being. I'm not, this tiny, victimized, worker in this, oppressive society. So,
Mm,
yeah,
yes. Yeah. So much
deep
yes to all
stuff.
of that.
So much.
So good. So
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well, as we knew, do you have something bubbling up right here to speak to?
Oh man, I not that's not like a huge tangent.
I
You know,
know.
I feel like I could just keep going. The answer is always going to be yes. Like I do have more, but
I know, me
um,
too.
like
Um,
you were going to say, like we knew just time
yes,
just
I knew
goes
the
so
time would
quick when talking
fly
about
by.
dance.
But we can always do another one. So I know I personally would be super down. It's like this was the first one and we got to really touch on some really juicy things
Mm,
and we went really deep. And also we can talk again um, and continue to go deeper as we're, getting to know more about each other's work as well. I know I have more questions in my mind about your practice, and I think so now, yeah, we want to start wrapping up and both share about what we do, what we're able to support people with, if people want to reach out and get some resources or some support or inquire about our offerings. Um, and I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah. So why don't we tell us, Reagan, how can
mm,
people find you? What are the juicy things that you're excited about coming up?
mm,
And yeah, what's your invitation, for people to connect with you?
mm. You, yeah. So I do embodiment and intuitive movement coaching on a handful of different levels. Um, I love doing one-on-one work with people. That's sort of the majority of the work I do
Mm,
is working on a really individual level to help people create a practice that's meeting them right where they're at. Um, and then I am also hosting a 12-week movement journey, and it's sort of a culmination of all of these pieces that I'm really obsessed about. It's an online course, and we'll meet weekly, doing a 2-hour call, and we'll also have some structured ecstatic dance experiences. And there's a link to that in my bio. It's called The Body's Story, and I'm also always super open to dropping in with people. I'm so passionate about this work and the impact that it can have on everyone's life. And I always like to encourage people that if this is something they're interested in, if there's like sticking points, or if they have an idea of where they want to go, but they don't know how to get from A to B, or they just feel that calling of like, wow, I want to do this, but I have no idea, what that could look like or where I should start or what that even means for me. I have a handful of spots each month to just drop in with people one on one for like one free coaching call to figure
mm,
out some of those pieces. And I really, really love those. I've learned so much about the community and
mm,
what's alive within this work through doing those calls with people. So I always like to
mm,
invite people to reach out to do one of those calls if they're feeling called to this work.
mm, mm. Yeah, it just speaking to our uniqueness. That's you know, yeah, each person is kind of coming from somewhere different with different desires, interests, experiences, and
Mm,
as people can see from our various paths, and just knowing that every person out there dancing or has such a unique path. So yeah, so beautiful, Reagan. And yeah, I really recommend people go check out Reagan's work and all the links in there in the bio, and so much goodness. Awesome.
mm.
And hopefully you can catch Reagan performing sometime at a festival or concert as well. I highly recommend. There's some videos on her page. You can check it out.
Mm,
Um, awesome. Yeah, and I'll share briefly what I have going on. Of most excitement, I'm hosting a retreat coming up at the end of August, 27th to 20, or 25th to 27th. Yeah, in the Pacific Northwest area here near Seattle, Tacoma, Portland. area. And it's called Dance Your Divine Freedom. And the work that I do is really about developing that spiritual empowerment through dance. So I love the similarities and also differences that we have in our work. So,
Mm.
you're Reagan, like have a lot of finesse with really like the nervous system and body regulation and a lot of things, the sort of tools people really need. And then I find my work is focused more on really that internal spiritual connection with source. Like people who come to my events are like, wow, I didn't realize, this energetic relationship with spirit and feeling energy move through my body. And, people who like want to learn energy work or who are energy workers and maybe are missing the embodiment piece and want to explore the physical flowing movement with the energy work combined. So it's much more of I really host like a ceremonial containers. And I know your work is also deeply ceremonial and sacred and holds that deep, nourishing, goodness. So so I'm excited about the retreat coming up. I do also work one-on-one with people. And what else? I also work online. I actually just recently finished it was like a 6-month series focusing on this practice of energy dance that I teach. And so now it's already happened. So now it's available as a recording for, a more affordable version. And it's 6 2-hour recordings that's part presentation slideshow with my art that also is a good visual aid to help people see how they can visualize energy moving through the body through the art, and as well as like a full dance ceremony. So those recordings will be available soon, but people can reach out if they're interested in that. And we both have a lot of juicy stuff on our Instagram and ways to get involved. I have an energy dance downloadable ebook as well. If people are like, what is energy dance? You can check out in my bio. There's a downloadable version that gives a lot of tips and tools that people can take onto the dance floor to explore, energy and visualization, and like how can we use the beat to go into trance states, and beautiful.
Yay. Oh, it's so cool just to see the parallels in our work and how all of these different like entry points into kind of the same overall beast of movement and magic and energy movement and nervous system regulation. And just I love the parallels between the like Western science world and the spiritual like indigenous wisdom world, and how it's like sort of slowly catching up with the indigenous wisdom and just the frameworks that are available for working with all of these things.
Totally. It's so true. I always laugh when I listen to a lot of online talks, like a lot, and that are bringing together those topics, the science and the spirituality and the indigenous wisdom and the energy and the somatic trauma healing, and like the whole integration of all those pieces. And really the science just helps us like have a way to think about it or understand it. But really like, indigenous wisdom and has always been telling us these things. And personally, I always have just believe, it feels true and I believe it, and so but the scientific proof does help expand that. I know when I first started diving into Lynn McTaggart's work around intention and studying the power of intention, I already believed in the power of attention, but I was blown away to see what she found and like how powerful it is with such simple practices, like, oh my gosh. So Lynn McTaggart, I recommend people go check her out if you're interested. Regan, thank you so much. What an awesome conversation. Wow. Thank you for
so fun.
For saying yes and being this guest. And yes, it's been some time coming. I know have busy schedules, and I would love to do it again. So sounds like you're down for that. And
I would love that. Yeah, it feels like there's so much more to keep going into, and yeah, just scratching the surface on so many beautiful topics here.
for sure. And yet, I know on Instagram, especially, people have a hard time with longer videos. It's like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't help it. I have deep things that I care about, that I want to share and express and converse with people. So hope you enjoy listening if you're still here, and more to come. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you
Regan
so
Powers,
much.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you, Erica. So
Blessings.
much love. Hmm.
Blessings to all of us and our embodied freedom. May we really learn to value it. It can be easy to say that, oh, I don't have time to dance today, I have all these other busy things to do. And I know I do that, I say that, and even though this is something I'm so passionate about, yeah. So just, may we really continue to teach ourselves how important these practices are, and the singing too. I know you were just at a beautiful community singing grief event that I wish I was at, I had been at. And I like to bring in the singing too, even though it's less of the work that I'm sharing with the world. I think it's equally of power in terms of healing and trauma release and embodied freedom. So yes.
Yeah.
All right. You could see I could keep going. I just like, oh, and this other thing. We already said bye. Okay, go away. Anyone who
Oh my
knows me will
gosh,
be
endless.
laughing.
It's
I'd be like,
beautiful.
yes. All right. Well, blessings to everyone. Blessings to you, Reagan.
Ciao.
So
Thank you so
great.
much.
Yes, so
Yeah.
great to see everyone joining. Bye. Blessings. Reach out to us. We hope to see you in our
Yep.
DMs.
Say
Yes.
hello. Love to chat.
Don't be shy. We like to meet you and get to know you, see where you're at in your journey. Yes.
Mm.
All right. Bye,
Ciao.
everybody. Bye. Till next time.
Till
Yes.
next time. Goodbye,
Good
Pearl. So
dancing.
good to see you, Papa.
Bye.